Is Matt Rhule on track or ahead of schedule heading into year 2? Find out coming up.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. Welcome to those of you who are watching along with us. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and our title sponsor today is Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go, fast-paced, and lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis to taunt your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the Google Play and App Store.
Okay, welcome in. I am Mitch Sherman. Connor Happer is here with me as always. It's a new week, and final exams are almost upon us. Not us, but the students at the University of Nebraska.
Yeah.
That's next week. This week is the last week of spring semester classes. So we're going to tackle for these next couple of weeks what we believe are some of the biggest questions, Connor, that Nebraska faces over these 3 months ahead of the 2024 football season, and also as a program in the big picture. So as you said in the open, the first question up for us is about Matt Rhule, the second-year coach, coming off a 5-7 season. It seems counterintuitive to ask if he's ahead of schedule, but there's so much going on in the program that doesn't necessarily translate to the record in the first year. Connor, your thoughts. Is Matt Rhule ahead of schedule in May of 2024?
Well, I think I would have said that they were on schedule right up until signing day. And then I would have said they're probably ahead of schedule at that point. And then, seeing the spring and how that went and the spring game probably puts them ahead of schedule. I do think, though, there is an argument for the other side as well. Like, I think there's this kind of variable that we don't know yet, and Rhule has touched on it a little bit in spring ball because it was the biggest thing that bit them last year, outside of like horrific quarterback play and general like offensive ineptitude last year. It was their uncanny ability that carried over from the previous era of coaches to lose games late in just outstanding fashion. Like
that's still there. That's still
there. That question has not been answered yet, and so the hope is that you can create the base of your program, the foundation of your program is enough to make it so that that's less of an issue, but that's still there until it's not. So I think you can make the argument that it's just an unanswered question until it's answered. But just as far as how it feels, the talent that you have, what you've been able to put on your on the football team and the coaching staff that surrounds it, it feels either on or slightly ahead of schedule, and it would be ahead of schedule because you have acquired a 5-star quarterback and you're gonna let him have the reins this year.
Yeah, so one caveat to all of these questions that we're going to go through, and many of them will involve the 2024 team. All of if we ask in the weeks ahead, who is Nebraska's most intriguing player? I think we're going to have to kind of go into this like we've already done at certain times in the last few weeks, like other than, asterisk, other than Dylan Raiola.
Non-Dylan Raiola category. It all does come back to him, man. It's like we're going to have all these conversations throughout the summer. I experience it on my show every single day too. It's like, why does this feel like this? Does this feel better? Are they in a better spot here? Well, yeah, because, and then you eventually you connect two dots and you're back to Dylan Raiola. It's hilarious how it goes that way.
We're going to rename it. We're going to be Locked On Raiola. That's our podcast instead of Locked On Nebraska. By the way, follow us at Locked On NEB on Twitter, and you can also email us at lockedonneb@gmail.com. Subscribe on all of the podcast listening platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and watch us on YouTube. I think that the question here of whether Matt Rhule's on schedule, it also comes down to like the question behind the question, and that is, what is the schedule? Because if you take over a program at Texas or you take over a program at Michigan. I think the expectation is, as a new coach, that you win big by year 2. Year 1 is always a feeling out process, even at those kind of programs. But we've seen college football programs, several in the last few years. I mean, look at Washington with Kalen DeBoer, win big in year 2. And is that the schedule at Nebraska? No, it's not, because when Matt Rhule came in, he was looking at digging the Huskers out from 6 consecutive losing seasons. And they had a 7th consecutive losing season, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's behind schedule. I think to assess it, you have to, again, evaluate what the schedule is. And for Matt Rhule, it's always been this gradual build. He has, and when Nebraska played Colorado last year, that was the storyline for everyone leading up to the game. It was the snail against the rabbit, and Deion Sanders came out with Colorado and he lit the world on fire against TCU in week 1. And there was Matt Rhule losing like Nebraska loses against Minnesota. And I think if you took a poll of the college football public and said, all right, who's going to be further advanced in a year? At that time, they all would have said Deion.
Yeah.
At that time, you look at it, and I'm not sure that we all agree. I mean, look, Colorado didn't finish with a winning record last year. So Nebraska, to me, is on schedule or slightly ahead, but only because the schedule coming in, the expectations coming in, aligned with what the schedule for observers, for fans, aligned with what Matt Rhule felt. And that was for him. I've heard him say, don't judge us on year 1, judge us on year 4. And if that's the schedule, I feel pretty good about where Nebraska is going to be in year 4.
Yeah, I think there's just the temperature that he walked into at Nebraska. If you think back to a year and a half ago now, the climate of the state, and things were pretty well, like from a Nebraska fan standpoint, where everybody is super unwavering. Also the passion burns really hot. Maybe that passion was at one of the lowest points it's ever been, right when he took over. And so they had tried over the last 20 years, starting at Scott Frost and then moving backwards after Tom Osborne, like tried all these different things. You had the hot shot offensive guy a couple times, NFL background, developer that wanted to put a bunch of pieces around, and defensive minded, offensive minded. Like, you had all these different kinds of coaches over the years, and none of them really, really worked at the end of the day. I guess, one of them, Bo Pelini, was pretty good for a while, but none of them really worked. And so I think there was this kind of thought process potentially from Nebraska fans that were like, hey man, whatever it takes. If you want to strip this thing down to the studs, strip it down to the studs. That's fine. We're along for the ride. Just get us there, and we'll check back in when it's there. And so you can kind of feel it building in that way a little bit now. And that, you're right, Mitch, that absolutely aligned with the way that Matt Rhule wants to build it and has built it in his previous 2 collegiate stops.
I do think in the ebb and flow of Nebraska football over the last 20 years, this is now the second time where the Nebraska football public has given a head coach carte blanche to just do it his way. Because I also think that was the expectation when Scott Frost took over in 2018. It was, okay, we've been through so much difficulty and ups and downs. We're just giving you the keys and saying, do it your way. And the problem there was he didn't have a plan beyond what he was going to do out of the gate and in year 1 to build it. He didn't have a contingency. He didn't have the kind of experience, I suppose, and expertise that Matt Rhule does in thinking big picture about how to build a program. That's not to say that Matt Rhule has all the answers and that he's going to have this thing rolling a couple of years from now. But I think he has a better chance because he's thought more big picture about it than the last coach who got carte blanche did. So in the final analysis, I look way beyond the fact that Nebraska won 5 games in 2023 and that it went 0-4 in November. And I look at what he's doing in building a program and building the infrastructure behind a program. And in that sense, I think they're ahead of schedule. On the field, it was slightly behind in year one. So overall, slightly ahead.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, I thought you were going to Sean Eichhorst it there. In the final analysis, we had to evaluate where Iowa was. Yeah. Very close.
Well, that's another factor. Where is Iowa? Nebraska's protected rival. We have to start thinking about that. So
that might be
right now. I think we talked about this recently, maybe on the air, off the air. I tended to it's interesting to tend to look at Colorado every bit as much as I do Iowa in evaluating where Nebraska is at in building its program, because Matt Rhule and Deion Sanders came in at the same time and they play in the first 2 years. So that game in week 2, Ja'Cory Barney knows this. That game in week 2, there's a lot on the line, and I think a lot will be determined. A lot of people will make evaluations about Matt Rhule after they see the Huskers against Colorado in week 2.
No doubt. It's fair. It's a barometer. That's for sure. All right. Let's take a quick time out here. We can either continue this conversation, or we can ask Mitch to apologize to Nebraska baseball, potentially coming back.
Am I going to do that
on the Locked On Nebraska podcast?
Mitch Sherman here for LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. It helps you hire pros that you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses on LinkedIn, to give you another number, I know this off the top of my head, they get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, welcome back. This is where we usually, just get caught up here before we talk about Nebraska baseball. So this weekend, I took a trip and I watched my beloved Kansas City Royals. So this was yesterday, and get down there to realize that the game is delayed. The tarp's on the field. The game's been delayed an hour and a half, which is great. Then the game went very quickly. The Royals have a 2-0 lead, then a 2-1 lead going into the 9th, and a home run off the foul pole tied the game at 2, and they lost at 10, or in the 10th inning, 3-2 to the defending world champions. Then I drive back home a few hours, and then I realized that my sub basement is flooded because the sump pump backed up and whatever. So I had a great, awesome day yesterday, and it seems like we're both encountering like appliance issues, like household issues at this exact moment.
Mine is of my own choosing, not unlike yours. You don't choose to flood your basement, I hope, but that's rough, man. I feel for you on that.
We were just got a little dirty last night about 9:00. Not exactly what I wanted for a relaxing Sunday, but we got to the bottom of it.
I'm just removing a dishwasher at 7 a.m. from my kitchen because I've got a new one coming today to be installed. So I'm thick in the weeds on that, trying not to flood my kitchen. I was able to turn off the water, trying not to electrocute myself. I was able to turn off the power. I do have the dishwasher, I'd say 90% removed at this moment, but my friend who can do this in his sleep is giving me instructions on the phone, and it's turning into like a 45-minute project for something that he is just convinced should take me about 90 seconds to do. So that's where I'm at this morning. I'll go finish that when we get done recording this episode.
Hit us up for all your home improvement needs. We're experts. Give us a call, send us a text, send us a message, whatever you got, because we've seen it all in the last 24 hours.
While you were in Kansas City, I was also enjoying some baseball, but it was 13-year-old baseball. We were mired deep in tournament play this weekend in lovely La Vista, and came up just short in the championship game. Lost 5-3. So I didn't lose my mind. So the situation here is I'm the assistant coach, and our head coach had a flight to catch at 6:30 p.m. last night. I don't know what he's doing, scheduling travel in the middle of the baseball season. Like,
Yep.
this is serious stuff. So he had to leave in the middle of the championship game, and we were down 3-2. Shout out to the Fremont Nighthawks for beating our Gretna Thunder. Well-deserved championship over there for Coach Swanson and his team. But we felt good. Thought we had the pitching to win this tournament. And as a head coach, it was my head coaching debut this season, taking over the coach in third role that Jason, our head coach, normally does. And I let us down because I had about 4 innings to pull out the victory, and we were down 3-2 when I went to third, and we tied it up, and then gave up 2 runs and just couldn't put a rally together. So, but 3-1 weekend for my boys on the diamond, and we'll be back at it on Wednesday.
Well, very big of you to take responsibility. I thought you were going to say you were enjoying baseball on BTN Plus this weekend.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about Nebraska baseball. So the Huskers, I'm just exasperated by Nebraska baseball, and I don't know why I am. They're 30-16 now after taking 2 of 3 against Minnesota on the road. Minnesota is kind of a middle to bottom of the Big Ten team, and Nebraska won on Friday and Saturday. And here comes an opportunity to sweep a series for the first time since the first week of Big Ten play. And if my memory is correct, and Nebraska's just been kind of getting by, like winning series, lost the series at Rutgers, I think, but winning most of the series. And then, like the league championship is within reach. But 6-2 defeat against the Gophers on Sunday. Will Bolt, the head coach, says Nebraska, not enough urgency. And I just wonder, like on May 5th, like why you don't have enough urgency with an opportunity to sweep the series and move into first place in the Big
like you said,
Ten.
it would have pulled them dead even with Illinois for the top of the Big Ten, put you in a great spot for the last 2. I mean, you have a huge series coming up this weekend against Indiana. Like you would have loved to have an extra game of wiggle room going into that series, but pitching, like some of it is just on the surface level stuff. Like, Sunday's been a grind to try and figure out, or, I guess anything but Friday's been a grind to kind of figure out all year. So there's that piece of it for them. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride. That's for sure.
So they're 12-6 in the league, 1 game behind Illinois, and you've got Purdue coming in to
Indiana.
Nebraska does Indiana. Yeah, Nebraska does not play Purdue or Illinois, which are 2 of the top 4 teams in the league. Like great scheduling there. But Indiana visits Haymarket Park Friday through Sunday, and the Hoosiers are also 12-6 in the league in a 3-way tie for Nebraska, 1 game behind Indiana, and Nebraska has Michigan State to end the regular season on the road, and then the Big Ten tournament in Omaha. So maybe, we're talking, we talked early in the show about how the semester's coming to an end. I've seen college baseball teams that like kick it in gear when finals are over and they can just focus entirely on the diamond. And maybe that's this Nebraska team, because I was so encouraged by what I saw from Nebraska in February, the resiliency that it showed on the road. And that's why its RPI is what it is. Just amazingly it's still in the low 20s. Like it got up to 18 at one point this weekend. And now it's like 21 going into this week. And they've got South Dakota State, which won't help the RPI on Wednesday at home. And then, as I said, Indiana coming in, but I they are what they are at this point. I think that's the cliche, and that's how I'm looking at it. They're going to make the tournament. It appears that despite the disappointment that we felt from the Nebraska camp after the 3 losses in 3 games against Creighton, which looks like it's not going to make the tournament.
Nope.
It's this Nebraska team has the resume to be able to make it, and there's even been talk in the last few days that they could creep up into a spot where they're hosting a regional.
It sounds crazy, but I mean it might be the case. They are one of the best teams in the Midwest right now. They have one of the best resumes in the Midwest right now, I should say.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I would think it would take, like, you better win the Big Ten tournament if you want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to secure that and get Haymarket Park in June, that would be great. Um, you probably want to go win the Big Ten tournament, because I think there's enough like chinks in the armor. There's enough things that the selection committee can look at and just say, yeah, we're not giving them a host. You're
But
going to be a 2 and go to
they
Arkansas.
will often say, like, hey, Indiana State is a threat to, they'll probably be in hosting position at this moment. That's a really good team with a good RPI and a good resume and all that stuff. But like, I think they like to they like to spread it around as much as they can. There's a huge blob in the Southeast of where the regional hosts are going to be. There's a couple out West. And then I think they want to get a couple in the Midwest. So like if Nebraska can be that team, my guess would be that the committee is rooting for them to be in position to do it. So you have to check the boxes first, but they'll have a chance if they get to that point where they have fewer and fewer little marks that they haven't had this year.
Certainly would like to see them win 5 out of 6. That would be a 5 out of 6 in the Big Ten. I think that's what it's going to take to win the league for Nebraska, and that would also put them in good shape to potentially be a 1 seed. So we'll keep watching and keep hoping for that team to like fully come awake and be the team that they showed all that promise that they had the possibility to be back in February. So, all right, after the break, we're going to get back into talking about Matt Rhule. Huskers were on the road, so to speak, this past weekend, and we will discuss that. But first, are you still watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? If so, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, quick timeout. Talk about Monopoly Go. You're thinking these guys talk about Monopoly Go all the time. Well, that's okay. We're going to talk about it some more. There is just so much good stuff in the game. Monopoly Go. You can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. You can get unique stickers to trade, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, which I am definitely interested in, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. That's right, heist their vaults on Monopoly. Monopoly Go features constantly changing tournaments and challenges. There are mini games, digging for treasures, and there's always new events that help you win big. It's a big community on Monopoly Go. There's always something fun to discover inside Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and download it right now. It's Monopoly Go, free on the Google Play or the App Store.
All right, wrapping up on this Monday. Connor, did you see Saturday that Matt Rhule and a big group of Nebraska coaches and players, Dylan Raiola, Jalen Lloyd, and some others, Danny Kalin, were up at Norris Middle School in Omaha? I know you were getting ready for your trip to Kansas City. Did you go on Saturday? You must have went on Saturday night, because that's when all the rain came, and you weren't home to find your basement flooded until you got home on Sunday.
We left on Sunday morning, so we just left out. I was barely here. I was here for about 10 minutes before I woke up and I left yesterday. But I did see it, and I Norris is a place where I went to games for a long time watching Central High events. That's where they used to play football, and it was always kind of this big community. It's right in a pretty close knit neighborhood over there, and it was a good thing to see. I don't know. I don't think I want to downplay this too much. Like it's a big deal that Nebraska and Matt Rhule is trying to connect that piece a little bit, and with Link. I mean, we talk about the Lincoln Omaha divide. People have heard about it for years, and they're like, "What is it? Why does Omaha, think differently, react differently?" I don't know. It dates back a long time. It's probably too long of a story to get into in like 5 minutes here. But there has been a disconnect for a long time, and I think it kind of starts at the idea of. I mean, first of all, it's just effort. What has this staff shown that previous staffs have not, whether it's going into high schools in God knows where. It doesn't have to be Omaha. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the city. It could be anywhere on planet Earth. They're going to go into a high school and they're going to try and build relationships. So the first thing is just effort. I think the second thing is probably a little bit of entitlement from Nebraska over the years of just thinking that, hey, these kids are in Omaha. They're within our state. If we get good, if we play well, we don't even really have to recruit them. They're going to come to Nebraska. I think that's been a thing that has been resented by the Omaha community for a long time. So there's a lot that's tied in there. There's a lot that's buried in there. I think it's really cool. I don't think it fixes a relationship or whatever overnight, but what Matt Rhule is doing and how he's coming into this thing with wide open arms and embracing everybody in the state is super important. And he's already got a lot under his belt in that regard, and working on that relationship takes a while. And I think he's on the path to kind of, fixing it up.
I just had a great idea for a guest, an upcoming guest very soon on the Locked On Pod, maybe here in the next few weeks. As you went through that very good description of why it's important for Nebraska to do this. And look, Nebraska has always done a good job of putting on camps and creating opportunities for kids within the state. And, Matt Rhule wants to take that to another level. And, there were opportunities that have expanded for young kids in the state within the past year. But I think what they did Saturday, what was even above and beyond all of that, because some people don't have the ability to get to Memorial Stadium.
Yep.
And that's just a reality of life in parts of this state and certainly in parts of Omaha. Even if there's a chance there for them to get on a bus with a group, still it takes a certain amount of organization to make that happen. So if they come to you, that's different. And that's showing a level of effort and dedication on the part of the staff that is again above and beyond. So Norris Middle School is around 48th and Center in Omaha. It's not too far from the new Buena Vista High School. As you said, there's a connection there with Omaha Central, and there was a big connection with Omaha Central and people affiliated with the Omaha Central football program who were involved with this Matt Rhule youth football camp event on Saturday in Omaha. And he is serious, and his coaches are serious when they say that they want these kids to grow up hoping to be Nebraska football players and dreaming about being Nebraska football players. And if they can't become Nebraska football players, because many of them can't, then they'll be Nebraska football fans, and they'll be Nebraska football supporters, and they'll come to the game. And that's how the program continues to produce the same kind of support that has made Nebraska football what it is. So it's so important to reach out.
I think just show your face, and it's like, just whether there's a kid that you want to recruit, I spent 2 years of my high school career, high school at Millard North. And then I spent the other 2 at Central. And, I think at Central, it was like, it felt like it was pulling teeth just to get, and we had guys who went and played college football. It was like pulling teeth to get anybody with a Nebraska polo into that school. And, when I was at Millard North, and Bo would show up from time to time, and that was during the Bo Pelini era. But it's like, it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal at Central. It just didn't happen very much. And so it's just showing your face, man. It's just being there, whether or not you want to recruit a guy or whatever it is. It's developing relationships with these high school coaches or the trainers or whatever it might be. And then just being out there, being in the community. Like that's where it starts. And he is taking that very seriously. And it is absolutely the foundational piece to what they're going to do from a recruiting standpoint in this state.
Yep. Yeah. Final note on that topic is the Friday Night Lights camp is about 30 days away. And that's the big centerpiece usually for Nebraska's camp season in June. Nebraska staffer Adam DiMichele reminded us of that on Twitter on Sunday. He said it's 33 days out, Friday Night Lights. This is where Nebraska found Dylan Raiola in 2021. as a budding sophomore in high school after his freshman year of playing JV football. So don't underestimate the importance of what camp season is. It was big for Nebraska last year in finding several scholarship signees in that 2024 recruiting class. And I think it will be even bigger this year because players around the Midwest have gotten the message that Matt Rhule wants to find players and offer players out of his camps. So as that continues, only more and more good prospects and under the radar players are going to show up to be there in Lincoln for those events.
All right, Mitch, we will we'll wrap this thing up and plenty more to get into tomorrow and plenty of meat left on like all of the bones that we left out today. But a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, like us, plus our local shows covering our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app.